If you have ever wanted to visit the homelands of your ancestors, you're going to want to tune in today. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Crista Cowan. I'm the corporate genealogist here at Ancestry. And today's Wednesday Ancestry virtual event is going to be a little bit different than what you might be used to if you've joined us before. So we are going to be going live in just a minute, but today it's not just going to be me. I have invited a whole host of guests, including my dad, to join us today. And in just a minute, I'll introduce some of our other guests. But here is what I would like you to do. If you are watching this live on Zoom, or if you are watching this on YouTube, would you please, in the comments or in the chat, let us know if you could visit one place where your ancestors are from. Only one. You have to narrow it down. Which place would it be? So go ahead, let us know that in the comments. I'm super curious to see where you want to go. One of the places that I have not yet been, where my ancestors are from, is Prussia. And so I've reached out to my friends at AncestryProGenealogists, and joining us today is Kyle Beatty and our friends at Discover Live, because they have this amazing opportunity where they can help you visit the lands of your ancestors in a little bit of a different way than you might expect. I've also brought my dad, Steve, along with us today because he's going to go on this little trip with me. So I would like you to meet our friends from Discover Live, and I'm going to let Trisha take it away from here.
Thank you so much, Krista. So happy to be a part of this. And we'll become formal in just a minute here, but just wanted to share with all of our guests the services that we have with Ancestry and Discover Live. This is a collaboration that has been going strong for quite a while. And you all, as Krista mentioned, will be experiencing one of those services today. And this is the private discovery tour. We also do a group version of this where individuals can join when they're interested in learning more about their ancestral homeland. But this one today is a private one just about Krista and her family. So we'll be doing a little bit more of a deep dive into them and the area that their family called home. Additionally, we also have a service which is a personalized version where we do a lot more in-depth research with the team at Ancestry ProGen so that you can learn many different things about your background. And again, all of this is brought to you live and virtually, which means that you can invite family and friends, whoever you wish, just like you're seeing us today, to experience this type of ancestral visit. So, without further ado, I will start the more formal version of this tour now. As a host from Discover Live, my name is Trisha. Thank you so much for joining us today, Krista and Steve. We are so excited to take you on this journey of your ancestral homeland. The very interesting thing about this is that we are going to be visiting a living history museum. And for anyone who does not know what a living history museum is, it's a really wonderful way to bring a family's history to life because these museums recreate the historical settings to really simulate a past time period, which provides everyone with more of an experimental interpretation of history. These museums, which are really located around the world, can recreate to the fullest extent the conditions of culture, a natural environment, a historical period, all giving you examples of living history. And the museum that we are visiting today features art, archaeology, ethnography, and history, and it's housed in a 19th century mill building. So this is the perfect environment to bring Krista and Steve's family to life. And with that, I would like to introduce you to our tour guide today. His name is pronounced Wukash, and we always encourage questions and interaction, Krista, Steve, and the family guests. and Ancestry employee Kyle to please involve yourselves, ask questions in the moment, and really make this a tour about you and your family. So without further ado, Łukasz will make you the spotlight.
Hello, everybody. I should say good afternoon because it's afternoon in Poland, but it's good morning in United States. I should actually say dzień dobry because we are in Poland, and in Polish dzień dobry is good day. So dzień dobry, everybody. Welcome to Poland. We are now at the northwestern part of Poland in a Pomerania district, and the city where we are is called Koszalin. This is a Polish name of the city. The German name was Koszalin. And we are going to go into the museum in Koszalin, which is an indoor and outdoor, a very interesting museum, and I will take you there very soon. I'm a tour guide from Gdańsk, so my homeland is 3 hours away from here. Gdańsk is one of the biggest Polish cities in the middle north of the coast of Poland, but I traveled today here to show you this very interesting museum, and I should show you the weather because it's very beautiful today. Take a look at the sky, a bit of a blue sky, although it's autumn, but a beautiful autumn day. Blue sky, a bit of clouds, sun is shining, although it's like 2 o'clock and the sun goes down after 3 before 4, so the sun is low. We are standing next to the old city walls, but you can already see the museum over there, the place where we will go together to. But before we go together to the museum, I would like to start with the introduction. I would like to tell you the background, the history of Crista's ancestors in this land. And before I do, please take a look at the map of the region, so it will tell you more where we actually. So we are in Poland. On the left, you can see Szczecin, that is a border city on the border with Germany. So actually, the little part on the left, on the west, is Germany behind the border. You can see the Baltic Sea on the north, and we are now in Koszalin. And Koszalin is a city in the middle, close to the sea. I hope you can see it is pointed as Koszalin next to the sea. We are just 6 miles away from the sea, so very close from the sea. And Poland has 300 miles of the sea line. It's the Baltic Sea. We are on the south of the Baltic Sea. I came to you from Gdańsk, and Gdańsk is visible on the right. It's one of the oldest Polish cities, but actually Koszalin is more or less the same age of Gdańsk, because both cities, Gdańsk and Koszalin, received city rights in 1260s. But if you'll take a look at the map, you can also see 2 villages marked by blue and red on the bottom part of the map. Linowno, which is Woltersdorf, and Czarne Wielkie, which is Gross Schwarzsee. And while you look at the map, I would like to tell you, Crista and Steve and Crista's family, the history of your immigrant ancestors. First of all, Joanna Kadas, that was born on 26th August 1854 in Woltersdorf, Dramburg County, Koszalin area, Pomerania, Prussia, Germany. It used to be Prussia, Germany in that time. We discovered that Woltersdorf is now called Linowno in Drawsko-Pomorskie, Drawski County, Zachodnio-Pomorski province in Poland. And this area was transferred from Germany to Poland after the Second World War. Actually, if we go deeper into the background of this land, it is very complicated, and I tried to explain it to you on the way, but it used to be Poland. 1,000 years ago, it was a Polish land. Pomerania was Polish. Then it was the land of the Dukes of Pomerania. Then it became to be Prussia. But it was Prussia since 1720, when Prussia bought it from Sweden. Then the Second World War, and after the Second World War, it returned to Poland. But we will go through that history in the museum. So, Krista, your ancestors were evangelical Lutheran Protestants. They were not Roman Catholic. Now, Poland is mainly about 90% Roman Catholic. So, all the churches on the grounds that were former in German hands and that were Protestant were turned from Lutheran mainly to Catholic churches. Woltersdorf, now Linowno, was a part of the Protestant parish in Baumgarten, which is now a nearby village to Linowno, Gudowo. And so far, we have not found surviving records for this Protestant parish. But this is not unusual in this area where German Protestants were largely left en masse to move farther west to Germany after the war. We are uncertain of the fate of these church records at this time. We have no idea whether it survived. Your ancestry tree indicates that Johanna Kada's older sister Augusta was born in Woltersdorf in 1850, and their sister Henrietta was, however, listed as born in 1852, 20 miles away from Woltersdorf in Großfarsee, Neunstettin, Koszalin, Pomerania, Prussia, and Germany, but now it's Czarne Wielkie, Czaplinek, Drawski, Zachodniopomorskie, Poland. And Großfarsee, Czarne Wielkie, was located in the Protestant parish of Pochlen, Polne. Protestant church records from Polne, dating to 1838 and 1874 are held at Greifswald State Archive with microfilm copies at Family Search. We looked at the 1852 baptism for Großfarsee, but we didn't see Henrietta there. But there are other Kada's baptism in the parish. And more research in evangelical Lutheran parish registers in the area may actually locate some records of the family.
So, Łukasz, how far apart are Woltersdorf and Großfarsee?
From the place where we are right now, it is
from each other. Sorry.
From each other. It is about 20 miles.
Okay. Family, for those of you who follow along with my family tree, and I know a lot of people watching do. So my dad, Steve, is on the line with us, and his father is Fred. And I use my grandpa Fred for a lot of examples in videos that I do. And Fred's mother was Lillian, and Lillian was born in Texas. She was my great-grandmother. I knew her. She actually spoke German, even though she was born in Texas. That was her native language because she was raised in a German household and they went to a German Lutheran church. And Joanna Kaditz is her mother. So Joanna Kaditz is my grandpa Fred's grandmother. And my whole life, I grew up with a picture of Joanna hanging in our home over our piano, a picture of her and a picture of her husband. And as a child, I was a little terrified of those pictures because she was a very stern looking woman. But as I have gotten older and found more pictures of her and gained a greater appreciation for this immigrant woman, I have come to just appreciate her, and I suspect she had a little bit of a sense of humor. Dad, I don't know if you want to share anything else.
No, that. I had the same thing growing up. Those pictures were hanging over my grandmother's bed in her room, and every time I went in her room, I thought, okay, why are there two men standing there? And so she was very stern looking, but Grandma said she was very, very kind and loving.
So that's for everybody following along. Łukasz, thank you for letting me interrupt. I just wanted to make sure they understood who Joanna Kaditz is in relation to me.
And Krista, did you say there was a word that was used for the group of German immigrants that came to Texas that she was part of?
Yeah, they call them Hill Country Germans. So a lot of them settled in like Brenham in Washington County, Texas, the home of Bluebell ice cream. And there's still a lot of our family there.
Nice.
So about the surname of Johanna Kadatz's name, what we found out is that the origins of that name are German. But if we look back in the history, not just like 2 centuries back, but if we look like 1,000 years back in the history, I should tell you that like I told you before, this ground was Polish. Polish Duke Mieszko I arrived here in 10th century, second part of the 10th century. This is when Poland was established as a country. He arrived here and he conquered this land. So it became to be Poland 1,000 years ago. And now in middle of 13th century, German settlers arrived to this ground. So the question is whether your ancestors arrived from Germany, because Kadat's name has German roots. Probably in German language, Kadat, it probably meant a tomcat. It could mean a smart person. Now, question is whether your ancestors arrived here from Germany, from Brandenburgia, probably in the 13th century with a lot of other German settlers, or whether they were here originally at the Slavic ground, because origins of this land are Slavic, but German culture arrived here with the settlers in the 13th century. So that's the question of your name. And now, probably your family was here for all that centuries up to 19th century. And after the Second World War, those that decided to stay, because after the Second World War, everything changed. It was Prussia, like I told you, it was a Prussia from 1720s. But after the Second World War, these lands, in Poland, we call these recovered lands, lands that used to be Polish 8 centuries ago, 10 centuries ago, and we recovered these lands from Germany after the Second World War. And now German people that lived here, they could, well, if they had any Polish connections, if they felt a bit Polish, they could stay, but they could leave to Germany. So those that decided to stay, they had to change their names to Polish names. And we found out that Kadat's name probably was turned into Kadats. So they changed the final letters z to c, and probably it was just Kadats in Polish. And what we were able to find out is that there is still 8 to 10 people with the name Kadats living in Poland, just 8 to 10, so not many. But in Germany, there is over 400, about 450 people with the name Kadats living mainly in the eastern Germany. So,
well, my family left long before then. They went to Texas, I think this particular family in the 1850s or 60s.
1872, so, I think.
1872.
Her husband came earlier, and I always get that confused.
But maybe some branches of her family decided to stay, didn't leave, and maybe some relatives, far relatives, are still here, or either in Poland, or maybe they left and are in Germany. It's hard to say. Anyway, I think it's a good time to start walking into the museum to show you the museum, because it's a very interesting museum revealing a lot of history of the land. And I will switch the camera, so instead of my face, you will see the surrounding. We are in Koszalin. Koszalin is a city with quite a long history, 800 years of history. Now the population of Koszalin is 110,000 people. And as you can see, we are standing next to the brick walls, which are actually very old, because these walls have about 5 centuries of history. These used to be fortifications of the city that were protecting the city from enemy armies. So this was the border of the city, and we are actually in the place where was the Mills Gate. We have to cross the street, and you can already see the beautiful building of the museum.
And did Trisha say that used to be a mill house?
Oh, yes, actually, what we call this building, because it was owned by a miller, and now he was a rich man, a millionaire miller, and this mill here, the back part of the building, like over there, that building has its origins in 15th century, so that final part and the part where we'll be going for the exhibitions, it goes back to 15th century. That's the Gothic building, but the front part is beautiful, is neo-Baroque, and it is from 1890s. And now it was owned by a miller, and he was a rich man, so this front part is called the Miller's Palace. because it kind of looks like a palace, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A beautiful neo-Baroque building, which hosts the museum in Koszalin. So we have to cross the street to go inside. Actually, this is an indoor and outdoor museum, so we will spend the first part of the tour inside the museum, and then we will go out to see some original buildings where people living on the countryside and the farms in the rural district used to live. And this is the main entrance to the museum, so let's go inside. It is open between Tuesday to Sunday. On Monday, museums in Poland are always closed. Dzień dobry ponownie. And we will go up. Ja już nie będę zostawiał. We will go up the stairs to start the exhibition, but if you will take a look at these beautiful stained glasses showing the Dukes of Pomerania, and it actually reveals a part of the history of the land going back to 12th to actually to 16th century, because these Dukes of Pomerania, they ruled the land after it was Polish and before it was Prussia. Take a look at this one. Bogusław II from 1178 to 1220. Bogusław X, 1454, 1523. Jan Friedrich, 1544. It was the Griffins dynasty.
Those are stunning. Those are so beautiful.
These are really beautiful. You can see the date, 1589 to 1620. Second, the last of them died in 1637. So this was the Griffins family. So like I told you, it was a part of Poland, but when Poland lost control over this land, it became to be ruled by the Dukes of Pomerania, the Dukes from the Griffins family. And they ruled the land up to 16th century, but actually to the early 17th century. But the thing is that the more German settlers were coming here, the more Germanized this land became. And if you will take a look,
do you know what brought the German settlers there?
They were invited. They were invited by monasteries. They were invited because they needed men to work. There was not enough men, so they needed settlers to work here to grow the cities. So they were just invited, and they were coming here in peace, getting land. It was like immigration, like then the immigration to the United States. There was a lot of land, not enough people. That's how it looked like in 13th century. Actually, they arrived not only to here, but also to the eastern lands, to eastern Pomerania, to Gdańsk, the city where I'm from. And we can see the map, and this is the map of the city, but the map of this city, Koszalin, between 14th to 16th century. And I will show you where we are now. So this is an old city with its roots in 13th century. We are now, like here, this used to be the Mill's Gate, and the mill located like here. And these city walls right here, these are the city walls that we saw outside. This is where I was standing when we started the connection. And now you can realize, so this is the medieval city, like you might know from the fantasy stories. And there are 3 gates leading to the city. What's typical for the medieval city like this one are the fortifications. And here in this region on Pomerania, on the coast, there is a lot of clay. So the main material to build buildings and fortifications as well were bricks. So they built brick fortifications, brick gates, and most of the buildings in the city were brick buildings as well. Bricks was the most common, the best material they could use here. There are 3 gates, the Mill's Gate, this is the one that existed where we are, and this gate and the other high gate that is on the other side were removed at the end of 19th century. So when your ancestors were here, they could arrive to the city from the south, that is to Linovno, and to Czarne Wielkie. And if they arrived to Koszalin in 19th century, they would enter the city by the entrance through this high gate, as it was called. So there is a high gate and the Mills Gate right here, and the third one is to the west, and this is the New Gate, as it was called. In the middle of the city is a central marketplace and a medieval 14th century St. Mary's Cathedral that is over here.
So as the Germans started coming in, right, they have a different religion. Was there a church built for them? Was there any conflict over that at all?
It's like, well, as for the religion, the Reformation took place in 16th century, and the Germans were coming here in like 13th century, so before the Reformation. So
everyone was Catholic.
Well, it was like they were Christians. They were Christians,
Christian,
and
yes.
Okay.
they were Christians. So it's like it divided in 16th century, so 3 centuries later. So at first, it was the same religion. They didn't really care about the religion. It all changed, and everything here became to be Protestant. But Poland always was Catholic. So even religion was changing here. The culture, of course, it wasn't just the religion, but the culture. People that were coming here, their language, their culture. So this ground here, it was partly Slavic, it was partly German, and the people living here, their background, their history, their roots, it was all mixed. You know, people were living together, were mixing together, marrying each other, so they got mixed, and they have in their blood both German and Slavic blood, for sure.
Well, that might explain some of our DNA results.
So this is how the city looked like in the past. But I should tell you that unfortunately, during the Second World War, actually at the very end of the Second World War, the city was almost completely destroyed. As we speak about the old town, so the one that I showed you on the model, it was destroyed in 80%, and it was destroyed like many other cities at the end of the war. It was destroyed in 1945 in March, when a Soviet army came here. Germans were defending, and before Soviets attacked the city, Germans burned the city to make it more difficult for Soviets to follow. And that's how a big part of the city was destroyed. And then when Soviets arrived, they started to steal, to burn houses, and they destroyed the rest. So 80% of the city was destroyed. And you can see the comparison pictures from 19th century or early 20th century and now. Some of these didn't really change much. Some are completely different.
Łukasz, do you also have a photo of what Linovno was like that you'll show us?
Oh yes, I will show you the photo of Linovno. Actually, Linovno is a small village, but I will share you some pictures of Linovno. First of all, I have here, this is the map, 19th century map of Linovno, Woltersdorf. So as you can see, it's just a small village with just a few houses. And take a look at the manor's house from Linovno.
So would Krista's ancestors have lived there?
Well, we will. It is, of course, much more complicated. The structure of the people, they were landlords and they were peasants, and they were city citizens. So Krista's ancestors were probably among the peasants, because there was, of course, much less landlords. And landlords
That surprises no. Let's be honest.
As for the landlords, they owned the whole villages. Some of them owned several villages. The more rich landlord, the more villages he had. And peasants, well, it was kind of like a slavery work for them. But it was a slavery of the land, which means that the land belonged to the landlords. And those peasants, they could leave. But what would they do? they were receiving land from the landlords for working for the landlord. And now the deal was that they were supposed to work between 3 to 6 days a week for the landlord. And their free time, usually it was like 2 days a week, Sunday and Saturday, they could spend working on their part of the land. So it's like 80% of the land that they worked on and crops were for the landlord. 20% is what they could live for themselves. That's how it worked like. And actually, this manor house that you can see on the picture, it still exists till today. Let me show you something, because I find something interesting in Linovno. If you will take a look at this picture, this is the same building, but nowadays. And there is a few pictures on the internet available because it is for sale.
Oh boy.
Oh, there you go, Dad. You can go buy the manor house
So,
in Anna's house.
actually,
Make it a new retirement home for us.
very nice house and very nice land, because this house is 750 square meters of surface, which is like 7,500 square feet.
Wow.
A lot of space, right? I have no idea how many rooms, but it's not just the house, because the house also includes 144 acres of land around. So huge land. And of course, the price is very nice. If you have free $2 million, it is yours. We have quite a lot of those old landlord manors. Many of those are for sale, and sometimes rich people buy them and turn them into hotels. But nearby the Linovno, there is a village called Gudowo, and in Gudowo is an older church. And that's probably, it was a parish church for Linovno, so this is probably where Joanna would go to. Take a look at this old church. This is the one. This is a church in Gudowo, and probably your ancestors who would attend would go for masses to that church. This church is from early 18th century.
Is it mostly made of wood?
Well, it's like the tower is made of wood. The main part of the church is made from brick, and the roof is wooden. So I think I have another picture. I have pictures from the inside, so take a look at the inside. But it is a Catholic church now. It used to be a Protestant church, but it turned into Catholic.
Wow.
After the war. So as you can see, a small but very nice church. Although it turned from Protestant to Catholic, but the interior probably didn't change much. And now you can see a map showing the Pomerania. You can see the date when it received city rights in 1266. But when I zoom out, you can see the whole place. And now when we go down, you can see Dramburg. This is Dramburg. And nearby Dramburg, somewhere here was Linovno, and a little bit closer to the known Szczecin, which is now Szczecinek, was Czarne Wielkie. So this is the part of the map. When we zoom out, you can see the whole Pomerania. So Koszalin and somewhere like here in this region, Linovno and Czarne Wielkie.
It seems like Pomerania was a very large region. Is that true?
Well, it depends what you mean by a large region, but yes, it was a pretty important. Actually, this was a land that everybody wanted to possess. So there was a lot of wars here. If your ancestors lived here, the history was a very difficult history. Looking through the centuries, it was a place of many battles, many wars. And it changed, like the belonging of this ground changed quite often. Map. So Prussia, the original Prussia, do you see on the right the name Gdańsk? If you do, on the right bottom, Prussia is to the right from Gdańsk. This is Prussia, from Gdańsk to the right. These were the lands of the Prussian tribes. And those Prussian tribes lived there in medieval times, and they were not German. They had nothing to do with Germany, actually. Those were pagans that were living in that place, and they were a big problem for Polish kingdom, and they were a big problem for Lithuania. So one of Polish dukes in 1230s, he decided, the Duke Conrad, he decided to invite the Crusaders to defeat those pagans. And I don't know if you heard about the Teutonic Knights, the German order, the Deutsche Order. Have you heard about them?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
There were three orders of the Crusaders, three main orders of the Crusaders: the Johannites, the Templars, and the Teutonic Knights, the Knights of the German Order of Saint Mary, of the Hospital of Saint Mary. And they were invited because after the Crusades, they had nowhere else to go. They didn't know where to go. So they decided to go with that invitation. They arrived, and the deal between Polish Duke and them was to defeat the Prussian tribes and build their country on the ground of the Prussian tribes. It was in 13th century. They were Christians. So Polish Duke thought, it's a good idea. We will invite Christians to the pagans' land. They will not attack us. They will defeat the pagans. But he was wrong, actually. He was very wrong, because the Crusaders arrived, and they defeated pagans, of course. They built a powerful, strong country, but it was not enough for them. They wanted to grow the country. So they started attacking Lithuania, the Duchy of Lithuania, and they started to attack Polish kingdom. One of the cities they attacked was Gdańsk. They betrayed this city. They were invited into this city, but they took control over the city and many other Polish cities. And this is what started the war between Poland and the Teutonic Knights country. What's more, Poland was not powerful enough to defeat them, so Poland united with Lithuania, and for 4 centuries, Poland and Lithuania was a commonwealth. And now it was the country of the Teutonic Knights. They conquered a lot of land, but like I told you, from Gdańsk to the east, not here. They didn't reach that far. But in 1410, there was the biggest medieval battle in Europe, in Grunwald. It is Poland now. It is in the middle of Poland, between Polish and Lithuanian army against the Teutonic Knights army, supported by the knights and armies from the Western Europe. And Poland and Lithuania won that war. So Teutonic Knights were defeated, and it was the beginning of the end of the Teutonic Knights. And finally, in 1522, the leader of the Teutonic Knights, it was a religion country, so the highest in rank of the monks, he had to become a vassal of Poland. Actually, a Polish king conquered that country, and Polish king had two choices: to join Teutonic Knights country to Poland, and it would be a better choice for Poland, but he decided to make them Polish vassal. And the deal was that they had to turn into a normal country from the religious country. So they did it, and they turned into Prussia. So this is where Prussia came from the Teutonic Knights order country. It stayed the same country, they just turned from a religious country into Prussia, and actually became very powerful. But there is much more I should show you here, so I will start moving. Now, this part of the exhibition is an exhibition of the old historic art. And when we look at this art, what does this art have to do with your ancestors? Well, this is because there were manor houses in every village, and the owners of the villages had houses that were equipped with this kind of furniture and art. So that's how that manor houses used to look like. This is Baroque. Baroque is 17th and 18th century. So the manor house in Linovno probably looked more or less like this one. You can see this beautiful tiled furnace that was typical for that period in these lands. Beautifully decorated, detailed, painted furniture, chairs, wardrobes, like this big one, and the paintings of the rich nobility, of that landlords. This is Baroque. So this is like the first one, 17th and early 18th century. Next one is Empire. It is from the times of the Napoleon Wars. Napoleon Wars that actually were going on in this place as well. And during Napoleon Wars, the style in art changed to Empire, and it was a simplification, but also a lot of referring to ancient times. Another tiled furnace. So the look of the interiors in that rich houses changed. And now we go to the Biedermeister, which is a style that was typical for the middle class, not the very rich landlords, but rather less rich landlords and rich people living in the cities. So as you can see, it is much simpler, less decorations, not as beautiful, but not that bad, I would say.
So Joanna didn't meet her husband until she moved to Texas, but he was also from Prussia, and he was a carpenter. And so every time I see furniture from that region of the world, I always wonder, like, what kinds of things he made.
Well, we will go into a simpler house because that's how rich people used to live. This is a room showing historical styles from 19th century, but in that rich houses. And in 19th century, they were recreating old styles. So, like I told you, neo-Baroque, neo-Gothic, neo-Renaissance. So this room refers to that styles. So this is mainly 19th century, but closer to the middle and second part of 19th century. And this is Art Nouveau. So this is the end of 19th century and early 20th century. So this is after Joanna would leave the United States. And you can see it, in Art Nouveau, they tried to break any connection with the historical styles. They wanted to create new, simpler, more practical stuff. And now actually we will move in time. We will completely move in time to 1975. So 1975 is 100 years after your family would live. And it is a temporary exhibition about 1975, but why 1975? Because in 1975, they hosted in September in Koszalin a Central Harvest Festival. We have a long tradition from medieval times of the Harvest Festival, but it still exists and still is very important. But during the communist times, Harvest Festival was something big, and the place that was picked to host the Central Harvest Festival was a lucky place because the place was completely changed. But what I want to show you here is a painting that actually is from 1821, showing the Harvest Festival at the countryside, at a rural district in 1821. So if your ancestors were farmers, that's how they would celebrate the Harvest Festival at the countryside. You can see the rich house of the manor house of a nobleman, owner of the village, and you can see peasants having fun and celebrating. After hard work, they had their day to celebrate. And another one which shows farmers working in the field, harvesting. And this is 1896, so the end of 19th century, but it didn't really change much from the times that your ancestors were here. If you will look at this painting, you can see 1952 and people working the farm. This is when the things changed, and you can see cranes building in the background and people eating during the break in their work. This one is called Harvest. And the last one I will show you here is a propaganda painting of a man on the farm riding a tractor. These paintings were supposed to show farmers like superheroes, like a Superman riding a tractor to advertise this, to show the others that this is a great life they live at the countryside. To another room, and I will just quickly show you some pictures that we have here, because this is still 1975 and the Central Harvest Festival. What did it mean? That the first secretary, Edward Gierek, he was like a king of Poland in the communist times, and Poland was a communist country since the end of the war to 1989. And this is Edward Gierek here. He was like a president, prime minister, and everything in one, like a king. He was the most important person, and he arrived here for the Central Harvest Festival. And the Harvest Festival was important for the city because it changed the city completely. So I read the memories of people from here, and they said that if they left 2 weeks before the Harvest Festival for holidays, when they arrived later, everything was completely different. They rebuilt the city, they built new roads, they built new buildings, they opened a theater, they painted the walls, like here, for example, those old buildings that looked ugly, they painted them quickly to look better. They painted the walls. Well, funny thing is, but it's true, they didn't just paint the buildings, but if grass was not green enough, they would paint the grass as well. So it was important for the city. This is why it has its own exhibition. It was important for the city because it changed the city. The city that was a bit like forgotten and not very important, but it turned to be a modern city. And now we will go to another room, which is a very special one. So I want to show it to you. We will go the room that shows very dark times of 1945, the end of the war, which should be a happy time, but it was a difficult time. The end of the war was a time when the city was almost completely destroyed. 80% of the city was destroyed, and they had to rebuild it. Now you can see 3 dates and pictures. 1939, German army marching on the streets of Koszalin. 1945, the city completely destroyed. And 1950, people working during rebuilding the city from the ruins. You might realize that it is darker in here because those times were dark. There was a lot of chaos. The population, that was a German population, and if there was a branch of your family that did not emigrate, stayed here, there were 2 options for them, whether they would be forced to escape, to leave to Germany, or choose to escape to Germany before Soviet army state, or whether they would decide to become Polish. But if they decide to become Polish, they would change the name to Kadats. You can see people marching the destroyed streets of Koszalin. I don't know if you can hear it, but there are sounds of the guns firing. So actually, I'm here all alone, so it feels very atmospherical here. And you can see remaining things that were found from the times. You can see bullets, you can see some bugs. And now, city was empty. German people left. About 80%, 80 to 90% of German people left. So who arrived here? Polish people arrived here. Like I told you, these were the recovered lands, but Polish people came here from those lands that were taken by Soviet Union, from the eastern lands, also from Siberia, but also from many Polish cities. And we can see the names of the places that Polish people came here from. Sosnowiec, Smolno, Stalag, Italy, Włochy is Italy. Białystok is a Polish city, but also Berlin, Poznań, Lwów, Vilna in Lithuania. A lot of places. Sanok, that's the south east of Poland, Dąbrowa, Królewiec, which is now Kaliningrad, Russia. So people arrived here and filled this city, completely new people. So people that lived here for centuries, that had their roots here for centuries, had to leave. And even if your family did not emigrate, they would probably have to leave this place and move to Germany after the war. This is a typing machine that was used to give documents to new coming people. They were receiving a temporary place to stay. Then they were receiving like apartments, flats in the new built buildings, the documents referring to the times. And what was left, the belongings that were left after German people, were kept in the stores that were open for Polish people that arrived. And if Polish people, new people that arrived here, if they needed something, if they needed a bike, if they needed a gramophone, an accordion, whatever, a shoe, they could get them or buy them from that store. And you can see the corner with bricks that symbolizes that the city had to be rebuilt. And people, those people that arrived here, they did not arrive here to get a flat. They arrived here to rebuild the city from the ruins, and it was a very hard work. And take a look at these bags, because these are original bags of people that arrived to here, and small text telling the history of the people, real people. There is Karol Mytnik that arrived here in 1945. He was born in 1906, and he was a teacher and arrived here to become a teacher at school. Another one is the history of the first haircutter from here. Shoemakers, all the jobs arrived with the people. So that's how Koszalin was rebuilt after the war devastation, but the whole Poland suffered a lot during the war. And everything around here, everything where the armies were fighting and where Soviet army passed through was destroyed. Now we will go out because there is a very interesting outdoor exhibition that I want to show you. I wanted to show you one thing before we go to the old house. A year ago, they found a monument, and it was a monument of Friedrich Wilhelm I, the one that gave money to rebuild it. And this monument is 3 centuries old, but it disappeared during the war, and it was found after the war at the countryside in a barn, and they found it just a year ago, and they brought it back, and it will be restored. Take a look at the monument, it's over there. That's how it originally looked like at the picture. So they still find a lot of interesting things, and this finding must have been very exciting for them. And now I want to take you to the blacksmith's forge. So the lady I just talked to is opening it for us. And you can see a house looking very old. That's how the old houses used to look like, with a straw roof and with like a German style. You can see the skeleton of the building is wooden, but it is filled with bricks. But this is not an old house. This house is a new built house that just keeps the old style, and it's the office building of the museum. And here, more pictures from that Harvest Festival. This is Edward Gierek, the first secretary of Communist Poland. That knight on the horse is a coat of arms of Gdańsk. Here, we can see a map, so I will just quickly show you the map here. Where we are, where is Koszalin? You can see Koszalin is in the middle, like here. We are nearby the sea, and Linovno is like somewhere like here, and Czarne Wielkie as well. So let's go into the blacksmiths. Actually, this part should be especially interesting for you, because the blacksmiths, and after the blacksmiths, the fisherman's house, because that's how the normal people at the countryside used to live. That's how peasants used to live. This is how they used to work here. Dziękuję. And dziękuję in Polish means thank you. And proszę means you're welcome. So this is the blacksmith's forge from the end of 19th century, with the original bellows. You can see over there that they used to blow fire to the forge that is here to increase the fire. And that's where the blacksmith would work. You can see the anvil here. He probably used like a big hammer. Should be somewhere around here. So, well, you can, oh, hammers are like there. Oh, there are the hammers. But blacksmith would use, would make not only horseshoe, but they would also make tools that were used on the farms by farmers. And this is what you can see here. The old carriage. They would make the plow, they would make a sickle, yoke. I can see like a yoke is over there. And this is a scale. This building is also new, built to look like the old one, but all the equipment here, everything is original. At least 100 years old, mainly from 19th century. And we will now walk to the fisherman's house, because the fisherman's cottage house, this house looks like the house, probably the house of your ancestors could look like. This is the fisherman's cottage house, and this is the piggery. So we are at the courtyard of the farmers or fisherman's house. This is where they used to keep pigs. This house is original, and this house is from 1869. Take a look at this. And it was moved to here in the 1980s. So let's go inside. Are we ready to go inside to see how people lived? Normal people, not landlords, lived in 19th century, because it's a bit different, but very interesting. So let's go inside. And well, first thing that you can smell here is this, we can sense here is the smell of wood, of straws. You can see these are shoes that were protective shoes that they would put on normal shoes to protect them, not to damage their best shoes. There is an interesting thing here, and this is a tool that I find very useful. This is a tool that was used to take your shoes off. If you had tall shoes, you didn't have to reach down to remove that shoes, but you would use this one, and it's kind of like you would place your shoe there, and it would hold your shoe, and you just had to pull your leg up. Very interesting. Now we'll go to the room with a complete set of furniture from 1860s. So the table, chairs, this big chest, or they would store clothes, belongings. Bench here. It is all one set from 1860s. And what was typical for 19th century house were corners with holy pictures, holy sculptures, where they would pray once a day. It was a place where they would at least once a day pray. You can see a sculpture of Saint Mary, a Saint Mary painting here. And it says 1823 over there. And it says, we give ourselves under your protection. Other holy paintings on the wall and a tiled furnace in the corner. Actually, it's very warm inside, although now it's there is an electrical heating inside this tiled furnace. And we go to another room. And in the other room, you can see a bed. Crista, do you have any questions?
I'm just fascinated by all of this. I can't get enough.
Well, I will show you something interesting because we are in the kitchen now, and there is something interesting. Will you guess what it is? Take a look at this. This is a fire stove, and now this is to make waffles. If you open this is where they would place the pastry for the waffles. They would close it, and the fire would hit it, and it would make the waffles. Now they would remove it, the whole thing, to the other place and rotate it. It rotates. I have one hand, so I cannot move it. But if I would move it there, I would rotate, so it would hit from the other side, and the waffles would be ready. This one is to make a coffee, a grain coffee. And if we move here, well, of course, not every farmer's or peasant's house had such a thing to make waffles. And especially this thing, they would rather borrow from the manor's house. But this is a device. Will you guess what is it to make of? What you could make in this device? What is
It
it
looks
for?
like an ice cream maker.
Yes, this is for the ice creams. But how would they make the ice creams? They would go in the winter. They would go to the lake. They would cut the ice from the lake, keep it in the basement, and then they would put the ice inside and the cream inside, plus sugar inside, and some berries. And they would mix it, and they had the ice creams. This is the fisherman's house, so you can see fishing net here. This house is a bit bigger than the usual house. So what they have here are additional rooms for the laundry. And another additional room with some tools. This is where they would make the sauerkraut. They would cut the cabbage here, then they would place the cabbage over there, and they would either push the cabbage with stones, or they would go there with their bare foot, and with the feet they would turn the cabbage into sauerkraut by walking on it. An axe, the scale, and there is a thing to make butter. They would make butter over there. There is the thing where they would put the cream into the thing and use that upper part, a stick, to turn cream into butter.
Room looks a lot like grandma's old laundry room.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, it's not that old after all. It is like 150 years back, right?
Yeah.
So on the countryside, it didn't change much in some places. And the last one is a room where a sewing lady would make some clothes using the sewing machine here. Do you know what is the thing on the ground? So she would sit like here. She would work on the machine, making sewing things there. But what is this thing on the floor? It was a heating thing to heat her feet. So she was working in the comfort, having her feet warm. And this is kind of a cloth she would make. There's plenty of holy pictures on the walls in every room, actually.
Would that be more typical of a Catholic family than a Protestant family, or would a Protestant family also tend to have a lot of religious pictures around?
Both Protestant, Catholic. The difference is in churches. In churches, Protestant would rather focus on the altar, I think, any art on the walls. But as far as I know, Protestant families would also have holy pictures on the walls where they would pray. Might be that in Protestant houses, they would rather have one corner where they would pray to, not the whole house filled with the paintings.
Interesting.
I to już będzie wszystko. Dziękujemy. Tak. So, this is the house. We are going out to see it from the outside once again. So this is the peasant's house. Here, it is called the fisherman's house because it belonged to the fishermen, but it would not differ much except for the fishing net from the normal house from this district from 19th century. Of course, this one is quite a big one, so not every family had such a big house.
What are the roofs made out of?
The roof is made out of straws. Let's get closer, and you can see the straws.
Yeah.
But till today, on the countryside, sometimes, from time to time, you can find very old houses with this kind of roof. So, Crista, this is all I wanted to show you here, but I wanted to tell you that Johanna, your ancestors that lived in the United States, I think you should think of her like a hero, because it must have been a very brave act to emigrate. It must have been a very difficult decision to leave the land where they lived for her ancestors lived for centuries. And she was going to a place she had no idea. You know, today we have internet, so I can look to any place in the world. But living place that was unknown across the ocean, it was a horrible journey, actually. And probably what made them was a difficult situation on the countryside, because it was an industrial revolution. So people were leaving countryside because of the hunger, and they were moving to the cities, but cities were overcrowded. So they could move to the city, but it was hard to find a job. There were a lot of people in the cities. They would have to work in a factory, and they would get small money, and they would have a problem to find a decent place to live. So they decided to emigrate. And to emigrate, they had to sell everything. So it was like one-way decision. They sold everything they possessed. They sold their belongings, they sold their house. And already in 1870s, they owned the house. The landlords and the peasants, it worked to the beginning of 19th century. But in the middle of 19th century, they already owned the house, so they had to sell it. They had to load everything they wanted to take with them on the carriage, and they had to travel to the city from which they could take the train. And probably it was like the whole day or 2 days of travel to get to Koszalin on that carriage with everything they had that they wanted to keep, they didn't sell. In Koszalin, they would get on train. I traveled 3.5 hours by train today, and I'm already tired. But they had to travel by train for the whole day to get to Szczecin or Berlin, which was a station for emigrants. And from there, they would have to travel to Bremen, probably. Bremen or Hamburg, but as far as I know, your family traveled to Bremen. And then in Bremen, they had to get on board the ship, transatlantic ship, that would take them to United States, to Ellis Island. And it was a horrible part of the journey, because you can imagine 12 to 18 days on the sea, under the deck, usually about 500 men in a room, crowded, stinky, very difficult conditions, different kind of people, healthy, unhealthy, and they were traveling one way to Ellis Island, and in Ellis Island, there was an inspection, whether they are healthy enough or not, whether they can stay in the United States or they have to return back with nothing after all, because they paid for the travel. So they made it. But when I think about it, I think about that people that emigrated, like really real heroes that decided to do that move. So this is what I wanted to share with you today, Crista.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer.
I did have a question about like market villages. So you said that they lived about 60 miles away from the big city, but did they have like market villages that they would have visited that were larger than the place where they lived?
Yes, Linovno was a very small village. So there were bigger villages or smaller cities, because Koszalin was one of the main cities, the biggest cities. So there were smaller cities than Koszalin or bigger villages that they could visit for the market, of course. There is several of them, like Szczecinek, for example, that is not that far away. Drawsko-Pomorskie, these are smaller than Koszalin, but way bigger than Linowno. Linowno was a very small place. So I'm sure they traveled to nearby smaller cities or bigger villages, for example, to buy something for market or to sell things.
Very much so. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Thank you. Well,
Thank
you,
you.
Łukasz. Very informative.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you. And have a great day,
Yes.
because it's the whole day ahead of you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Crista, Steve, and Kyle, and thank you, Łukasz, for such a great tour. Just as a quick reminder to our audience, this was a private discovery tour for Crista and her dad, Steve, and her friend Kyle. These tours are about the broader region of your ancestral home. They include heritage, history, culture, immigration, and guests who take this tour get to learn more about their ancestors' lives through this platform, which is live and virtual. And we certainly look forward to talking to many of you from the audience today and answering any questions you have and seeing you on future tours, either in a group or as a private tour as we did today. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who joined us today. Just to reiterate again, if you are watching this live on Zoom, you can, in the chat, just let us know, again, where you would visit in the world if you could. And if you've got any specific questions, whether you're watching this live or on the Ancestry YouTube channel, we would love to hear any questions that you might have. The Discover Live team, I'm sure, will be monitoring that chat and those comments, as well as Kyle and his team at AncestryProGenealogists. So we hope that this is useful for you, just to get a flavor for what this kind of a tour might be like. I'm thrilled that I got to be the guinea pig, and even though my dad and I had to get up really, really early this morning in order to participate, so worth it. So Łukasz, thank you again. Trisha, thank you and your team for arranging this. Kyle, thanks for doing some of the research to make sure that we got to have an experience that was meaningful to us. And thank you all for being here. Bye, everybody.